Ambassador Jack Harris stood alone in the center of the Galactic Council chambers. Around him, thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some had forms that human eyes could barely understand. All of them looked down at the single human standing on the floor below. Jack had served as humanity's voice in this chamber for 12 years. He had learned their languages, studied their customs, and worked to build bridges between Earth and the stars. Today, he felt the weight of those years pressing down on his shoulders. The Council recognizes the representative from Earth. High Counselor Vethran announced from his elevated platform. The Silvery Elder was ancient by any species standards, his gray skin wrinkled and his 4 eyes clouded with age. But his voice still carried the arrogance that Jack had come to know so well. Jack activated his translation device and spoke clearly. Honored Council members, I come before you regarding the Kepler-7 system. As our records show, human exploration vessels discovered this system 3 standard cycles before any other species arrived. Under Council law, this grants us primary claim to its resources. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack waited for silence before continuing. Despite this, the Council has awarded extraction rights to the Morthian Consortium without consulting Earth or acknowledging our prior discovery. I am here to request that this decision be reviewed. High Counselor Vethran leaned forward slightly. Ambassador Harris, the Council has already considered this matter. The decision stands. With respect, High Counselor, the decision violates the very laws this Council established. Human membership in this Council is relatively recent, Vethran replied, his tone carrying a note of condescension. Perhaps you do not fully understand how such matters are handled among elder species. From the Morthian section, Trade Minister Zorath let out a sound that might have been laughter. His bulky purple form shifted in his oversized seat. The humans discovered a rock in space. We have the technology to actually use it. Should children claim what they cannot hold? Jack kept his face neutral, though his hands tightened slightly at his sides. Earth has been a Council member for 40 years. In that time, we have shared our medical advances freely. We have opened our trade routes to all species. We have served as neutral mediators in 17 interspecies conflicts. We have asked for nothing except fair treatment. And you have received it, Warlord Drexen called out from the Kalthari military delegation. The massive reptilian warrior showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. You are allowed to exist in Council space. You should be grateful. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Jack noticed that not all species joined in. Ambassador Krytos of the Villani sat quietly, his delicate features showing something that looked almost like shame. A few others also remained silent, but silence was not enough. It had never been enough. Jack took a slow breath. I see. Then I have nothing more to say at this time. I will report the Council's decision to my government. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the Council moved on to other business without a second thought. 3 days later, Jack stood in a secure communication room aboard the human diplomatic station. The face on the screen belonged to Senator Daniel Cole, head of Earth's Interstellar Relations Committee. The senator looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. They rejected it completely? Cole asked. They did not even pretend to consider it, Jack replied. 40 years of service, and they still treat us like beggars at their table. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Jack, I need you to understand something. This is not just about Kepler-7. Over the past decade, we have documented over 300 violations of our rights by Council members. Our patents have been stolen. Our colonies have been denied protection. Our people have been discriminated against on dozens of worlds. I know, Senator. I have lived it. The Senate met yesterday. We took a vote. Cole paused, and something in his expression shifted. The motion passed with an 87% majority. Jack felt his heart begin to beat faster. What motion? Complete withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The words hung in the air between them. Jack had imagined this moment many times over the years, but he had never truly believed it would come. "We are done begging for scraps," Cole continued. "We are done being insulted and exploited. Earth will stand alone if necessary, but we will stand with dignity." Jack closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was steady. "What are my orders?" "Deliver our withdrawal in person. Make it clear and make it final. Then bring our people home." The next day, Jack Harris walked into the council chambers for the last time. He had not requested to speak, and his sudden appearance caused confusion among the council staff. But High Counselor Vethran, perhaps sensing something important, allowed him to approach the central floor. The chamber fell silent as Jack reached into his coat and removed a small object. It was the human membership seal, a simple disc of metal bearing Earth's symbol. Every species had one, placed in a special holder in the chamber when they joined the council. Jack set the seal gently on the podium before him. 40 years ago, humanity came to this council with open hands and hopeful hearts, he said. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. We shared our knowledge without asking for payment. We healed your sick and fed your hungry. We stood between warring species and helped them find peace. We believed that cooperation and respect would be returned in kind. He paused, looking around at the thousands of faces watching him. We were wrong. The silence in the chamber was absolute now. Even Vethran seemed frozen in his seat. The United Earth Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately, Jack continued. All human personnel will depart Council space within 30 standard days. All diplomatic channels will be closed. All shared programs will be terminated. He stepped back from the podium, leaving the seal where it lay. We bear no hatred toward any species here. We simply recognize that we are not wanted, and we will not stay where we are not valued. Perhaps one day, things will be different. Until then, we wish you well. Jack turned and walked toward the exit. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the silence. No one moved to stop him. No one spoke. Ambassador Kreithaus watched the human leave, his heart heavy with a feeling he could not name. High Counselor Vethran stared at the abandoned seal on the podium, his four eyes blinking slowly. Trade Minister Zorth shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Warlord Drexen's smile had faded. The doors closed behind Jack Harris, and for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had nothing to say. Outside the chamber, Jack paused for a moment. He looked back at the great doors that he would never pass through again. Then he straightened his shoulders and walked away, carrying with him the dignity that humanity had finally decided to claim. In the chamber behind him, the Seal of Earth sat alone on the podium, already growing cold. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and High Counselor Vethran had called another emergency session. This was the 4th one this week. The chamber that once buzzed with confidence now carried a different energy. Fear had begun to creep into the hearts of the galaxy's elder species. The situation is temporary, Vethran announced, though his voice lacked its usual strength. The humans will return once they realize they cannot survive without council resources. Trade Minister Zorth shifted his massive body in his seat. Sweat glistened on his purple skin. High Counselor, with respect, our projections were wrong. The humans are not coming back to negotiate. They have sealed their borders completely. Then we will wait longer. We may not have time to wait. Zorth pulled up a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Numbers and graphs floated in the air, all of them pointing downward. Human shipping routes carried 34% of all trade between council worlds. Those routes are now closed. My own people's economy has contracted by 18% in 3 months. From the Volani section, Ambassador Krytos rose slowly. His thin frame seemed even more fragile than usual, and dark circles marked the skin beneath his large eyes. The trade losses are concerning, but they are not our greatest problem. The chamber turned its attention to him. Krytos had always been quiet in council meetings, preferring to watch rather than speak. His decision to address the full council now carried weight. For the past century, my people have imported medical technology from Earth, Krytos explained. Human engineers design the machines that run our hospitals. Human scientists developed the treatments for our most common diseases. We never thought to develop our own alternatives because human goods were affordable and reliable. He paused, his voice growing heavy. 3 weeks ago, a critical component in our primary medical fabricators failed. It was a human-made part. We have no replacement, and we do not know how to build one. Silence fell over the chamber. 17 hospitals on my homeworld have already closed, Krytos continued. Thousands of my people are dying from conditions that were easily treatable just months ago. And this is only the beginning. Veterans of Four Eyes blinked rapidly. Surely your scientists can find a solution. Our scientists spent the last 100 years studying human technology, not creating their own. We became dependent without even realizing it. Krytos looked around the chamber. I do not believe we are alone in this. The murmurs that followed confirmed his suspicion. Species after species began to share their own problems. The Tarathi had relied on human agricultural techniques to feed their growing population. The Mendari had built their communication networks using human designs. Even the proud Selvari, Vethran's own people, had quietly adopted human water purification systems on their colony worlds. No one had noticed how deeply humanity had woven itself into the fabric of galactic civilization. The humans had never demanded recognition for their contributions. They had simply helped wherever help was needed, asking for nothing but fair treatment in return. And the council had given them contempt instead. Warlord Drexen had remained silent through the discussion. The massive Kalthari warrior sat in his military delegation section, his scaled arms crossed over his chest. But his usual confidence was gone. A fresh scar ran across his face, still healing from wounds received in recent battle. There is another matter, Drexen finally said. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber. The Dreth Imperium has increased its raids on our outer colonies. In the past month, we have lost 4 border stations and 2 military outposts. The Kalthari military is the strongest in Council space, Vethran replied. Surely you can handle primitive raiders. Drexen's eyes narrowed. The Dreth are not primitive, High Counselor. They are patient. For decades, they tested our defenses, but never committed to full attack. Do you know why? He stood, his towering form casting a shadow across the nearby seats. Because humans shared their sensor data with us. Human listening posts tracked Dreth movements across 3 sectors. Human analysts predicted their strategies and warned us of coming attacks. Without that intelligence, we are blind. The warlord's voice grew bitter. I called the humans weak. I said they should be grateful we allowed them to exist. Now my soldiers die because I was too proud to see what they gave us freely. 2 weeks later, Drexen led his fleet against a Dreth raiding force near the edge of former human space. The battle should have been simple. His ships outnumbered the enemy 3-1. But without human intelligence, Drexen did not know that the main Dreth fleet waited just beyond sensor range. What he thought was a small raiding party was actually bait for a trap. The ambush was devastating. Dreth warships appeared from nowhere, their weapons tearing through Kalthari vessels before they could even raise shields. Drexen's flagship took 3 direct hits in the first minute of combat. as alarms screamed around him and his crew scrambled to contain fire spreading through the ship. Drexen finally understood. The humans had never been weak. They had simply chosen to help rather than conquer. And the Council had mistaken their kindness for lack of strength. The order to abandon ship came too late for many. Drexen was among the last to reach the escape pods, his body burned and broken. As the pod launched into the void, he watched his flagship explode in a ball of fire. Dot around him floated the wreckage of a dozen Calthari vessels. In the distance, Dreth ships began collecting prisoners and salvage. The greatest military defeat in Calthari history had taken less than an hour. Back on Axiom Prime, news of the disaster reached the Council within days. The chamber fell into chaos. 3 minor species announced their immediate withdrawal, blaming the elder races for driving away humanity. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. High Councilor Vethran stood at his podium, watching his carefully built order crumble around him. For the first time in his long life, he had no idea what to do. In his private quarters that night, Ambassador Krytos sat alone in darkness. On his personal screen, he watched old recordings of council sessions from years past. In each one, Jack Harris stood calmly before the assembly, requesting nothing but fairness, offering nothing but friendship. And in each one, the council laughed at him or ignored him or dismissed him as unimportant. Krytos touched the screen gently, pausing on an image of the human ambassador's face. There was no anger in those eyes, even after years of insults. Only patience and quiet hope that someday things might change. "We did not deserve your kindness," Krytos whispered to the empty room. "And now we are paying the price for our blindness." Somewhere in the vastness of space, behind sealed borders, humanity watched and waited. They had not abandoned the galaxy out of cruelty. They had simply stopped giving their gifts to those who refused to value them. The Council had wanted to see what they looked like without the humans. Now they were learning. 6 months after the humans left, Dr. Amy Lawson sat in a small observation room near the edge of human space. Her job was simple: monitor galactic communications and report anything important to Earth's government. In the early weeks, the reports had been routine. Now, they broke her heart. The screens before her flickered with intercepted transmissions from across Council space. Distress calls from Villani hospitals pleading for medical supplies. Emergency broadcasts from Morthian banks warning of system-wide collapse. Military communications from Calthari commanders, trying to coordinate defense against Dreth advances. Amy had studied xenopolitics for 20 years. She had always believed that the galaxy would be fine without humanity, that Earth's contributions were helpful but not essential. She had been completely wrong. A new transmission appeared on her screen. It was from a Villani colony world called Tessith Prime. The message was addressed to anyone who might hear it. "This is Administrator Ven of Tessith Medical Center. We are requesting emergency assistance. A viral outbreak has spread through our population. Our treatment facilities have failed. We have no functioning equipment. Death toll is currently 16,000 and rising. Please, if anyone can help us, please respond." Amy closed her eyes. 3 months ago, human researchers had been developing a cure for exactly this type of virus. The project was nearly complete when the withdrawal order came. All research was packed up and brought back to Earth. Those researchers could have saved Tessith Prime. Instead, they sat in laboratories on Earth, forbidden from sharing their work with species that had mocked and exploited them for decades. Amy understood why the order existed. She even agreed with it in her head. But her heart ached for the innocent people dying on distant worlds, because their leaders had been too proud to treat humans with basic respect. Far from the observation room, Captain Lavra Bennett commanded the human patrol vessel Horizon. Her mission was to guard the border and ensure no unauthorized ships entered human space. It was boring work, but Lavra understood its importance. The withdrawal only meant something if it was absolute. Then the distress signal reached her. Civilian transport had crashed on a small station near the border. The station belonged to the Villani, which meant it was technically outside Laura's responsibility. But the transport was human, carrying 30 Earth citizens who had been working on Villani worlds when the withdrawal was announced. Laura did not hesitate. She ordered her ship toward the station at maximum speed. What she found when she arrived was worse than she expected. The station was falling apart. Power systems flickered. Life support was failing. And it was not just the human transport that needed help. Hundreds of Villani civilians were trapped aboard, including children. The plague that was devastating Villani worlds had reached this station. Sick people filled every corridor. The medical bay had no supplies. The doctors had no working equipment. Laura's orders were clear. Rescue the human civilians and leave. The Villani were not her concern. She looked at the faces of her crew. She saw the same conflict in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. Prep the medical bay, Lavra ordered. We're taking everyone we can carry. Her first officer stepped closer. Captain, our orders specifically state. I know what our orders state. Laura's voice was firm, but not angry. I also know that I am not going to watch children die when I have the power to save them. If Earth wants to punish me for that, they can court-martial me when we get home. The rescue took 6 hours. Laura's crew worked without rest, carrying the sick and injured aboard the Horizon. They saved all 30 humans and 412 Villani, including 87 children. When the last survivor was aboard, Lavra ordered her ship back to human space. She did not speak to the Villani she had rescued. She did not ask for thanks or make speeches about human kindness. She simply did her job and left. But the Villani remembered. Stories of the human captain who risked her career to save strangers spread across their worlds. In a time of darkness, it was a small light of hope. Back on Axiom Prime, Scholar Yenny sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by datapads and research notes. She was young for a Villani, barely 30 cycles old. While the elder politicians argued about blame and strategy, Yenny had been doing something different. She had been studying humans, not their technology or their trade goods. Their history, their culture, their beliefs. What she found amazed her. Less than 300 years ago, humans had nearly destroyed themselves in great wars. Their weapons had been powerful enough to end all life on their planet. They had stood at the edge of extinction, and they had chosen to step back. They had rebuilt their world. They had united their species. They had reached for the stars not to conquer, but to explore, to learn, to meet new friends. When they joined the Galactic Council, they could have demanded respect. Their technology was advanced enough to threaten any single species. Their population was large enough to challenge the elder races. But instead of demanding, they had offered. Instead of threatening, they had helped. The Council had never understood this. They saw human generosity as weakness. They thought that anyone who gave without demanding payment must be foolish or inferior. They had been wrong. Yenny made a decision. She recorded a message and broadcast it on every channel she could access. It was illegal. It would probably end her career. She did not care. My name is Scholar Yenny, she said into the recording device. I have spent the past 6 months studying humanity. What I learned should shame us all. She spoke for nearly an hour. She described human history, human art, human philosophy. She explained how humans had overcome their own darkness and chosen light. She showed how they had entered the galaxy with nothing but hope and had been repaid with cruelty. We called them weak because they were kind, Yenny said, her voice breaking slightly. We called them primitive because they shared instead of hoarded. We laughed at them for 40 years, and they never stopped helping us. Now they are gone, and we are dying, and we still have not learned." She paused, gathering herself. "I am not asking them to come back. We do not deserve that. But I am asking my own people, and all the peoples of this council, to look honestly at what we have done. We drove away the best friends we ever had. The least we can do is admit it." The broadcast spread across council space like fire. Within days, millions had seen it. Yenny was arrested, then released when protests threatened to overwhelm the authorities. Her words had touched something deep in the hearts of ordinary people, who had always known that the council's treatment of humans was wrong. On the edge of human space, Commander Ryan Peters stood at a border checkpoint when a small Volani ship requested permission to cross. The pilot was Ambassador Krytos, alone and unarmed. "I come to beg," Krytos said through the communication channel. "Not for myself, for my people. Please, let me speak with someone who can help." Peter's orders were to turn away all requests. The border was closed. No exceptions, but something in Krytos' voice made him pause. This was not a politician making demands. This was a broken man carrying the weight of his people's suffering. "I can't let you through," Peter said finally, "but I can give you something." He transmitted a short text message to Krytos' ship. It read, "We are watching. We are waiting. Show us you can change." Krytos read the message 3 times. It was not forgiveness. It was not an invitation. But it was not rejection either. It was a door left slightly open. For the first time in months, the Volani ambassador felt something other than despair. It felt like hope. 9 months after the humans left, High Counselor Vethran was removed from power. The vote was unanimous. Even his own species had turned against him, blaming his arrogance for the catastrophe that had befallen the galaxy. The council chambers were half empty now. 7 species had withdrawn completely. 12 others had reduced their participation to symbolic presence. The great assembly that once governed 1,000 worlds now struggled to manage basic functions. Ambassador Krytos stood where Vethran had once stood, at the central podium that looked out over the remaining delegates. He had never wanted this position, but someone had to try to rebuild what pride had destroyed. "We have all lost something precious," Krytos began, his voice carrying through the damaged chamber. "Some of us have lost loved ones. Some have lost wealth. Some have lost security. But all of us have lost something we never knew we had. The friendship of a species that asked only for respect and received only contempt." The delegates listened in silence. There were no more interruptions, no more mocking laughter. Suffering had taught them humility. "I do not stand here to blame anyone," Krytos continued. "We all share responsibility for what happened. Even those of us who disagreed with how humans were treated stayed silent when we should have spoken. Our silence was its own form of cruelty." From the Kalthari section, Warlord Drexen rose slowly. His body still bore scars from the disastrous battle months ago. Half his fleet was gone. 1/3 of his soldiers were dead or captured. The proud warrior who had mocked human weakness now walked with a limp and spoke with humility. "The ambassador is right," Drexen said. "I called humans cowards because they preferred peace to war. I laughed at their diplomats because they sought compromise instead of victory. Now my people die defending borders that humans protected for free, and I understand how foolish I was." Trade Minister Zorath was the next to speak. The Morthian had lost everything. His trading empire had collapsed. His fortune was gone. He wore simple clothes now, nothing like the expensive fabrics he had once displayed. "I built my wealth by stealing from humans," Zorath admitted. "I took their inventions and sold them as my own. I charged premium prices for goods that cost them nothing to share. They knew what I was doing. They never stopped me. They just kept giving, hoping that someday I would learn to give in return. His voice broke slightly. I never did. And now I have nothing, and I deserve nothing. The confessions continued for hours. Species after species acknowledged their failures. They spoke of stolen technology, broken promises, and years of insults. They did not make excuses. They simply told the truth. When the session finally ended, Krytos called together a small group of delegates who genuinely wanted reconciliation. Among them was Scholar Yenny, whose broadcast had awakened so many consciences. Despite her youth, her voice carried weight now. We must draft a new charter, Krytos said. One that guarantees equal rights to all species, including humans, if they ever choose to return. Will they return? One delegate asked. After everything we did? Yenny answered. I have studied humans more deeply than anyone in this room. Their history shows that they are capable of great forgiveness. But forgiveness must be earned. Words alone will not be enough. We must show them through actions that we have truly changed. The drafting of the new charter took weeks. Every article was debated carefully. Equal voting rights for all members, regardless of how long they had belonged to the council. Full territorial recognition based on discovery, not political power. Protection of intellectual property and scientific contributions. Mechanisms to prevent any species from being exploited or dismissed. Thought it was the charter that should have existed from the beginning. It was the council that humanity had hoped to join 40 years ago. Far away. On Earth, Senator Daniel Cole received daily reports about the changes happening in council space. He sat in his office late at night, reading through the details of the new charter, watching recordings of the confessions and apologies. Part of him wanted to let the council collapse entirely. They had earned their suffering. Decades of insults and exploitation had left deep wounds that simple apologies could not heal. But another part of him remembered why humanity had reached for the stars in the first place. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to find friends among the endless darkness. Dr. Amy Lawson was called to Earth to present her analysis to the Senate. She stood before the assembled leaders, her research displayed on screens around the chamber. The council is dying, she said bluntly. Without human support, their civilization will collapse within 2 years. The Dreth Imperium is already expanding into the vacuum. If the council falls completely, the Dreth will fill the gap. And why should we care? One senator demanded. Let them suffer the consequences of their choices. Amy paused, choosing her words carefully. Because the Dreth will not stop at council space. Their empire grows through conquest and slavery. If they absorb the resources and populations of the former council, they will become powerful enough to threaten Earth itself. The chamber fell silent. There is another reason, Amy continued. The beings dying in council space are not the politicians who insulted us. They are ordinary people who had no power over how their leaders behaved. Children are starving. Families are being torn apart by war. Billions of innocent lives hang in the balance. She looked around the room. We left the council because we refused to accept injustice. Will we now stand by while innocents suffer? Is that who we have become? The debate that followed lasted for days. Senators argued passionately on both sides. Some demanded that humanity stay isolated, protected behind sealed borders. Others called for immediate intervention, regardless of past grievances. In the end, Senator Cole made the decision. We will not rejoin the council, he announced. Not yet. But we will not stand by while people die either. We will offer humanitarian aid to those who need it. We will show the galaxy that human values are not conditional on how we are treated. Captain Laura Bennett received new orders the next morning. Her ship, the Horizon, would lead a humanitarian mission to Volani space. They would bring medicine, food, and supplies. They would help whoever needed help, without asking for anything in return. As her crew prepared for departure, Lavra gathered them on the observation deck. Through the windows, they could see the stars stretching endlessly before them. "Some of you might wonder why we are doing this," Lavra said. "The Council treated us badly for 40 years. They laughed at us, stole from us, and dismissed us as inferior. They have no right to expect our help." She paused, letting her words settle. "But we are not doing this because they deserve it. We are doing this because it is who we are. Humans do not help others to earn rewards or avoid punishment. We help because helping is right. We show compassion because compassion matters. The galaxy may never fully appreciate what we give, and that is fine. We do not need their appreciation. We need only to look at ourselves in the mirror and know that we did not become as cruel as those who hurt us." The crew stood straighter. Something shifted in their eyes. "We are heading into uncertain space," Lavra continued. "We may face hostility. We may face danger. But we will face it together, and we will face it as humans. Are you with me?" The answer was unanimous. As the horizon prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Lavra stood alone on the bridge for a moment. She thought about all the Vellani children she had rescued months ago, the ones she had saved against orders. She wondered what had happened to them. Soon, she would find out. And she would save more, as many as she could, for as long as she was able, because that was what humans did. The stars blurred around her ship as it leaped into the unknown, carrying hope into a galaxy that desperately needed it. 1 year after the humans left, the Galactic Council chambers looked nothing like they had before. The old design was gone, the tiered seating that had placed elder species above younger ones demolished. In its place stood a circular assembly hall where all delegates sat at the same level, facing each other as equals. Ambassador Krytos stood at the entrance, watching the final preparations. Workers installed new lighting and tested communication systems. Artists painted murals on the walls, depicting scenes of cooperation between species. One mural showed humans and Vellani working side by side. Another showed a human doctor treating a Kalthari soldier. These were not fantasies. They were memories of the humanitarian missions that had been happening for the past 3 months. A PAIS communication officer approached Krytos. "Ambassador, human ships have been detected approaching Axiom Prime. 12 vessels. They will arrive within the hour." Krytos felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment he had been working toward for months. The new charter was complete. The Council had formally apologized through every channel available. But words meant nothing without action, and action meant nothing without acceptance. Today, they would learn if humanity was willing to give them another chance. The human fleet arrived exactly on schedule. They were not warships, though they could have been. Earth's military was powerful enough to threaten any species in Council space. Instead, the fleet consisted of diplomatic vessels and support ships, the same ones that had been delivering aid to suffering worlds. Ambassador Jack Harris stepped off the lead ship and onto Axiom Prime's docking platform. He looked older than he had a year ago. The weight of what had happened showed in his eyes, but he walked with the same quiet dignity he had always carried. Krytos was waiting for him. Behind the Vellani ambassador stood representatives from every remaining Council species. Warlord Drexen was there, his scars visible but healing. Trade Minister Zorath stood in simple clothes, his wealth gone but his conscience cleaner. Scholar Yenny stood near the front, her research having helped bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. "Ambassador Harris," Krytos said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to Axiom Prime." Jack studied the assembled delegates. He had faced them many times before, but always as an inferior being asking for scraps of recognition. Now they stood before him with bowed heads and humbled hearts. "Ambassador Krytos," Jack replied, "I am here to listen." The walk to the new council chamber was silent. Jack noticed every change along the way. The old symbols of hierarchy had been removed. New signs in multiple languages, including human English, marked the corridors. Workers and officials of different species moved together, without the rigid separation that had once defined every interaction. When they entered the chamber, Jack stopped and simply looked. The circular design was striking. The murals were beautiful. But what caught his attention most was a small display near the entrance. It held the human membership seal that he had left on the podium 1 year ago. Preserved under glass with a plaque beneath it. The plaque read, "Left behind by Ambassador Jack Harris of Earth." As a reminder of what happens when kindness is met with contempt, may we never forget. Jack touched the glass gently. Then he straightened and walked to the center of the chamber. The formal presentation of the new charter took nearly an hour. Krytos explained each provision carefully. Equal voting rights, territorial recognition, intellectual property protection, mechanisms to ensure that no species could ever be dismissed or exploited as humanity had been. When the presentation was complete, Jack was invited to respond. He stood in the center of the circle, surrounded by the species that had wronged his people for 40 years. "I am not going to pretend that the past did not happen," Jack began. "Humans have long memories. We remember the insults. We remember the theft. We remember standing in this very building and being told that we should be grateful to exist." The chamber was absolutely silent. "But we also remember other things," Jack continued. "We remember that Ambassador Krytos never laughed at us, even when he could have. We remember that Scholar Yenny risked her career to tell the truth about what humanity had given to this galaxy. We remember that ordinary people of many species protested when their leaders refused to treat us fairly." He paused, looking around at the assembled faces. "Humanity did not leave this council because we wanted to punish anyone. We left because we could no longer accept injustice. We would not stay where we were not valued, and we would not pretend that disrespect was acceptable." Jack reached into his coat and removed a new seal. This one was different from the old one. It showed Earth at the center, but around it curved the symbols of every council species, connected by a ring of clasped hands. "Today, I am authorized to announce that the United Earth Federation accepts the Council's new charter. We will rejoin as full and equal members. Our borders will reopen. Our cooperation will resume." Relief and joy swept through the chamber. Delegates embraced each other. Some wept openly. Krytos stood very still, his eyes wet with tears he did not try to hide. But Jack was not finished. "Let me be clear about something," he said, his voice cutting through the celebration. "We are not returning because we need you. Earth survived this past year quite well. Our economy is stable. Our borders are secure. Our people are safe." The chamber fell quiet again. "We are returning because we believe in what this council could become. We are returning because billions of innocent beings suffered during our absence, and we cannot stand by while suffering continues. We are returning because humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology or our military. It has been our capacity for forgiveness and our commitment to building something better than what came before." Jack placed the new seal on a pedestal in the center of the chamber. It gleamed under the lights, a symbol of hope and renewal. "This is a new beginning," Jack said. "The past is not erased. The wounds are not healed. But from this moment forward, we move together. We build together. We face the darkness together. And if any species, human or otherwise, is ever treated with contempt in this chamber again, then we will have failed everything we claim to believe." Warlord Drexen stepped forward. The massive Calthary warrior approached Jack and stopped a few feet away. Then, slowly, Drexen raised his arm and placed his fist over his heart in the traditional Kalthari salute of deepest respect. It was an honor that had never been given to a non-Kalthari in recorded history. "I called your people weak," Drexen said, his deep voice rough with emotion. "I was wrong. True strength is not in weapons or armies. True strength is in the courage to forgive. Today, I learned this from humanity." Trade Minister Zorath came next. He carried a small datapad, which he handed to Jack. "This contains records of every transaction where I cheated or exploited human goods. I am submitting myself for whatever judgment you deem appropriate. My people will pay reparations for as long as it takes." Scholar Yenny did not speak. She simply walked to Jack, took his hand in her small fingers, and pressed it to her forehead in the Villani gesture of profound gratitude. When she looked up, her large eyes were shining. Jack accepted each gesture with grace. He did not gloat or demand further humiliation. He simply nodded and offered his own hand in return, human style. As equals meeting for the first time, later that evening, Captain Lavra Bennett watched the celebrations from her ship's observation deck. Dr. Amy Lawson stood beside her, both women looking out at the lights of Axiom Prime glittering in the darkness. "Do you think it will last?" Lavra asked. Amy considered the question. "I think it depends on all of us. The council changed because they suffered. But suffering fades. Memories grow dim. Generations pass, and the lessons get forgotten." "That sounds pessimistic." "It sounds realistic." Amy smiled slightly. "But here is the hopeful part. Humans will be here now. We will be part of every discussion, every decision, every new challenge. And if anyone starts to forget what happened, we will remind them. Not with anger or punishment, just with the truth." Lavra nodded slowly. "I used to think our job was to protect humanity from the galaxy. Now I think maybe our job is bigger than that." "What do you mean?" "I mean maybe we are here to remind the galaxy what it could be. Not through force. Just by being who we are. By helping when we could ignore. By forgiving when we could hate. By building when others tear down." Amy looked at her friend with new appreciation. "That is a heavy responsibility." "It is," Lavra agreed. "But I think we are ready for it." In the chamber below, Jack Harris stood among former enemies who had become partners. The work ahead would be hard. Trust would take years to rebuild. Old habits would resurface, and new conflicts would emerge. But for the first time in 40 years, humanity was not alone. They were part of something larger, something that had finally learned to value what they offered. The galaxy had almost lost its heart when the humans left. Now, with their return, it had a chance to beat again. And humans, being humans, would make sure it kept beating for as long as they could, because that was who they were. That was who they would always be. Not conquerors, not victims, but builders of bridges, healers of wounds, and keepers of hope in a universe that desperately needed all three.